I actually wanted to start in a similar area to where Peter just left off, and to add to what Beth said. So one of the chunks of work that I've been doing in the Parliament is to try and get into those figures, and I've been trying to do that in two ways. One is I chair the Standing Committee on Estimates and Financial Operations in the Upper House, and so we've had the Forest Products Commission in on several occasions to ask them questions about their budget. It's actually a one-page item in the budget papers. It's about computers. and talks about computers, yeah. So one of the reasons why it's really hard to get to the bottom of the figures is, as Beth says, the costs are borne by DEC, the Conservation Commission, as well as the FPC, and DEC don't prescribe down to that detail what work they're doing that underpins logging. We've got closer to those figures by persistent questioning, and I had one of my researchers do some work on that, which underpinned our submission to the draft forest management plan for the next 10-year plan. So if people are interested in, and I know there are other people working hard on this, she put together quite a lot of information about all the answers to questions that we got on the costing. And I still argue very strongly that this is the Achilles heel of the industry. If we want to actually get logging out of native forests, we have to show that it's not actually making us any money, apart from all the other environmental reasons and endangered species and the whole thing. There is a good economic reason why we need to move into plantations and do that as quickly as possible. So the economics has been a big centre of the work that I've been doing in the Parliament. As I say, we put together a submission from the Greens to the draft, next draft forest management plan, and we are following that process as much as we can, and we'll respond to whatever comes out. We're not very hopeful about what's going to come out of that process. Certainly the indications are that there is going to be actually an increase in the logs allocated. So we need to have some political answers before we even get to that point. And that's why we're here. We've got a state election on. How do we get the forests into the debate? How do we have it on the front of people's, to the front of people's thinking when they actually cast a vote? I think the other key area, apart from the economics, that I've been working on is endangered species, and the community has really lifted their interest in terms of the icon. Red-tailed black cockatoo has played a key role in making the link for people in the city to actually understand that what happens in the forest is having this, these ramifications. And one wonderful thing about mobile species is that they move around. And it's the same, you're seeing the same thing in the ocean with some dramatic changes with fish stocks because of a warming climate. And what we're seeing with the black cockatoos is because of the stresses on the forest that they are now moving onto the coastal plain and staying there for much longer than they ever have before. And people are noticing this. It's recreated that link which was very present during the major campaign to end old growth logging back in 2000, leading up to 2001. Got to make those links, got to understand how the whole thing functions together. So the arguments that have to be made in the next 5 weeks are the forests and woodlands of Western Australia are under extraordinary stress, unprecedented stress, and every indication is that that's going to increase. The rainfall patterns and the long-term prognosis is that the southwest of Western Australia is going to be impacted by climate change, perhaps more than anywhere else in Australia. I mean, a bit hard to say that when the Queensland floods are going on, but the CSIRO predictions for the southwest are very extreme in terms of reduced rainfall and reduced available water in the environment. That reason alone, you leave the forests alone, you leave them standing up. They are worth more to the environment and to our survival if we keep them intact. What we don't need is more logging. What we need is actually a forest conservation plan, not a forest management plan. We need to restore and conserve what we've got, rebuild the linkages, and look at how we use fire in that environment. Current practices of broad-scale prescribed burning are likely, and every indication is this is happening, drying out the forest, encouraging more understory, actually building the fuel load, and meaning that the forests are more likely to burn again. So that we need to really think wisely about what we're doing with fire in the environment. I wanted to also just touch on the fact that historically the Greens have been at the forefront of the forest campaign, and I wanted to acknowledge the work that my former colleague, former Member of Parliament and colleague Chrissy Sharp did in the ending of old growth logging in conjunction with the Labor Party. We basically turned that whole logging outcome, we delivered that major breakthrough in terms of reserving significant parts of the forest. But that's not the end of it. We still have unfinished business in terms of making sure that the forests are valued for their conservation value and also their carbon storage. And we now are beginning, as Jess was saying, to see the hard figures in terms of what is the value, a dollar value put on the carbon that are in the forest woodlands. So, if I get re-elected, and for those who may not know, I'm actually running for the Southwest, not for North Metro again. I intend to continue the advocacy for the forest in the Parliament, to continue to be able to answer questions of the finances and how they don't stack up. I intend to reintroduce the bill that I introduced just before the end of Parliament this time, which is a bill to amend the Wildlife Conservation Act. The Wildlife Conservation Act is over 60 years old, totally inadequate protection for endangered species in terms of inadequate fines, and the whole bill needs to be rewritten. Now, we've got an indication that the government will do a rewrite, but let's make sure that it's the right rewrite rather than the wrong rewrite. And I guess to conclude, because I've had this sort of happen, and I just wanted to say that in terms of presenting a positive alternative to the native forest logging sector and what's historically happened in the Southwest, now's the time to say, why don't we make a rapid transition into plantation timber? It's a win for the farmers, particularly now we have a price on carbon. There's some tweaking of that to make sure that it's actually palatable and acceptable to farmers. Currently, what's being offered isn't brilliant, but the concept's in place and the price signals are in place. We just need to get the actual mechanism right, and people can make money in plantations and producing sawn timber, wood chip, firewood. All of these products can be grown on already cleared land, and we know that that's all doable. What's needed to make that transition is the political will and the leadership to say this has to happen. If it doesn't happen now and we conserve the forest now, it's going to happen at some point in time, because the argument that we're sustainably logging our forests is totally discredited. So thanks very much. That's my 10 cents worth. And I have 10 copies of our policy if people want to take those home. If not,